What's up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of Bearded, Wholesome, and All Things Baltimore. I'm the host, Matt Trigger. I have a very special guest tonight coming to the show. Um, Coach Kurt Beathard. He is a former collegiate head coach, now coaching high school football, and he was a quarterback at at Towson University here in Baltimore County, Maryland, about 2.5, maybe 3 decades ago, and he's been coaching ball, it seems like, ever since. So welcome to the show, Mr. Kurt Beathard. Kurt, how you doing, sir?
Good, I appreciate it. And just as a correction, I've never been a collegiate head coach. I'm the
Sorry,
head
sorry,
coach
my
at high school, but it's okay. I don't want anybody I know out there going, he didn't coach.
so thank you for joining the show, Coach. It's been an honor to get a chance to talk to you. Um, you know, you come highly recommended from Coach Sean Murphy, who coached at Archbishop Curley for a long time, and a couple of my listeners, when I told them you were coming on, they remember reading about you at Towson in the newspaper back in the day, and that's the demographic, some of the demographic for the listeners of the show. So, how's everything going, Coach? I know that you're coaching high school ball now. Before we get into your career a little bit, how's everything going now, coaching high school football?
Great. I'm coaching a small Christian school here outside south of Nashville, Tennessee, Zion Christian Academy. And I never thought I'd ever be coaching high school football, but it's just one of those things that led me to it, coming back home to Nashville area. And I'm blessed to be able to do it.
How is it being close to your brother? I know that he is a Nashville country songwriter. Is it nice being close to your brother?
Yeah, when I moved down here in 2000, my family and I moved down here in 2010. At the time, I was working in the UFL, and I could live wherever I wanted. Leaving Illinois, I go, why don't we move down closer to family? So we moved down to Nashville. And with my at the time, only my brother Casey lived here. Then my dad moved down. Then my other brother. Then my sister. So our whole family's down here now.
That's awesome. I want to, now that the pleasantries are all out of the way and such, and the ice is broken. Um, you played quarterback at Towson uh quite a bit ago, and you were part of a very highly efficient offense. Um, you played your high school ball, I believe, in Virginia.
Yes, Northern Virginia, Oakton High
N-
School.
Okay, and at the time, I believe Towson was still Division 2, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken.
we were Division 2, and I think that my last year, 1985, they made the commitment to transition into Division 1 AA. So we played an extra amount of 1 AA teams. Then I think 86 team was the last official year of Division 2. Then they went fully to Division 1 AA. Yes.
How was it being a quarterback at the collegiate level? A lot of kids, that's the goal, to make it to college. You know, the numbers and the percentages are always different, but less than 5% of high school kids play college ball when it's all said and done. What was it like to be a quarterback at that level?
All I've ever played was quarterback, and just was blessed to have the opportunity to play. I originally went out to my dad's alma mater, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. They switched coaches, wanted to move me to receiver, and my brother was going to go to Towson, so I go, I'd love to go play with him. So I just kind of tagged along with him, and was fortunate enough to get the job at the time.
That's fantastic. I wanted to ask you a question though. A lot of our listeners have played at the high school level. I played at the high school level. I know
Yep.
what it was like to put pads on and play. For the folks listening that have never done it, what is the biggest adjustment being a quarterback wearing the full gear, the helmet, the shoulder pads? It restricts your vision, it restricts your move. What's the biggest difference from playing essentially pickup football to going on a field and doing it in full gear? A lot of people don't even really understand that part of it. I wanted to ask you what your thought process was to it.
Well, I think the people that have done it their whole life and played quarterback their whole life from 8 years old, we weren't allowed to start till we were 8 years old. I never noticed it. I just thought that's the way it always was. We didn't have 7-on-7 leagues. We didn't do all that. without pads. We didn't have all those flag football leagues they have now. We were playing football, and it was pretty much, back in the day when we had spring ball, you had 20 practices. You didn't just have 10. It was 20 padded practices for 3 hours. So I didn't know any different. I had a question asked to me one time in college at Towson my senior year. They said at the time I was playing really well for the Division II quarterbacks, and they asked me, they go, "Man, if you were only, how would it be if you were taller? You might have a chance to play at another level." But I go, "I don't know. I've never thrown a ball at 6'4". I've always thrown it at 5'9.5", so I wouldn't know what the difference would be, if that makes sense." So I just played. I grew up knowing football, playing football, catching punts from Larry Seipel and catching balls from Bob Greasy and Earl Morrill. That's all I knew. So it was an easy transition for me. But I can see a lot of quarterbacks now that can do really well pass the ball in 7-on-7. You get them behind an offensive line with people coming at them, not even close to being the same guy.
I agree with you because the pressure and the fact that you can get hit is a completely different ball game. I know that okay, you played in college in the mid '80s, and a lot of football fans, myself included, I played in the early 2000s and the late '90s. Through elementary and middle school. The rules are clearly different now. It's more
Yeah,
geared towards player in the name of player safety, and it's more geared towards um, offensive efficiency in terms of not touching the wide receivers after 5 yards downfield, not touching the quarterbacks below the knees or above the shoulder pads. So you have like a strike zone, so to speak.
right.
Um, has it been a difficult transition for you knowing that you played the game in its peak physicality in terms of just play style all the way through present day where now you have to teach these different things to uh, different level players from college down to high school?
Uh, I noticed the transition when I got out of college. I never really noticed it in college because it transitioned a little bit slower, piece by piece. And coaching the offensive side of the ball, you don't really have to deal with it much, especially as an offensive coordinator. You're still working schemes. The offensive line coach, obviously, and receivers coaches do some stuff. But going to the high school level, it took me a whole season to adjust. I go, "What do you mean that's a penalty?" And I had no idea. I'm like, "You can't block somebody like this. You can't do this." I didn't know. So that was an adjustment. So you do have to teach a little bit different. In a small Christian school like I'm at, we start from the basics. We're teaching kids that never played football how to get in the stance, how to tackle, how to put on a helmet. I had a kid come in who put his undershirt over his pad and goes, "Coach, this shirt's too small." I go, "That's not your jersey. That goes under your pads." I was like,
That's
"Oh, what did I get
that's
myself into?"
it's incredible. And I did a little bit of research about the high school you're at, Zion Christian Academy, and because of the school size and the other area school sizes, you've played a little bit of a hybrid mix of 8-man football and 11-man football.
Yes.
How has that been? Preparing that you've had to play mixed schedules where one week you might have an 8-man team and the next week you might have an 11-man team.
Well, when you look at it, our high schools only played 8 since I've been there because
Okay.
but our middle school played the hybrid. So we did have 2 different schedules. But um, when I took over, we were forced to go to 8-man because we didn't have enough kids. So my first phone call was to Sean Murphy. He's the one that told me about the job, and was winning a lot of football games playing 8-man down North Carolina. And to me, it was all brand new. But once I got involved in it and saw it, we ended our season with 9 players last year on an 8-man football team.
Wow.
Yeah, because of injuries or people that were only kickers or only this. So it's tough. It's tough. You got guys playing 92 plays, never come off the field. But the game's the same. You're still tackling, you're still throwing, you're still blocking. Everything's the same. You're just minus 3 guys.
I wanted to ask you about that. With the minus 3 guys, what positions are essentially eliminated from the 11-man as opposed to 8-man?
2 offensive tackles and a guy in the backfield, basically. So I
Okay.
use my tight end as a tackle and tight end, or go on balance to make a side longer than the other. It's kind of fun scheming. It really is. It'd be a lot more fun if you had a lot of players that played that you can utilize more. Right now, we're putting people in positions because, we have our offensive guards are 130 pounds. And I'm like, whoa, this is tough. But
that would definitely be a transition because I've only ever played 11-man ball, so I can imagine your years of experience as playing and coaching 11-man ball and then going down to that. That's got to be, like you said, it's fun to scheme, but because you're an offensive mind, but at the same time, that's got to be a huge transition, knowing that you don't have 5 hogs up front to protect your quarterback.
That's true. But you know what? You're pretty much playing against the same type teams. Now, obviously, some are better. Some have 33 kids, and they have more people to do it with, and they're better. And we're going to get there. Right now, we have 24, so we're in a lot better shape than we've been in the last 2 years.
That's good. So you essentially are 3 deep at every single position if you were to balance it off that way.
We're 1 deep at offensive and defensive line. We're like 6 deep at everybody that wants to play receiver.
See, that's one of those crazy things where, as a kid, you want to play the flashy position, but being an adult and being around the game for a while, if I'm the 6th string wide receiver and I know I have a better chance of getting on the field as a defensive end or a defensive tackle, I don't care how big or small I am. I want to see the field.
That's exactly right. I go, you can either get out there and play linebacker, or you can stand next to me.
Yeah, and nobody wants to stand next to the coach.
Yeah,
and wait their turn because you're waiting for an injury or you're waiting for a blowout one way or the other. And if you're waiting for a blowout your way, you don't want to be in at that point because you're down 3, 4, 5 touchdowns.
Yeah. Yeah, we have plays. You can make your guards eligible, so we make sure that they know that hey, you can get the ball.
Now, is it still the same regulation size field?
Actually, some of them are. They shouldn't be. It's supposed to be 80 by 40.
Okay.
But we play on our field is 100 yards by 40 yards, which is manageable. We played on one field that was even wider, 55 yards wide, 100 yards against a good team, and we couldn't cover the field.
Because that seems like with 6 less bodies out there, there's a lot of space, and if you have any type of athletic ability, it seems like you can just run jet sweeps or run pop passes all day. And
they did for a 60-6 score.
That just seems like it's crazy. I was always curious because I doing my research. I know that you played in the Arena League for a while.
For a minute.
And for a minute.
Very first year, I played half a season. Went to training camp, did all that stuff, and played with the Washington Commandos. But I be honest with you, I never stepped on the field.
I understand that, but I mean, does it kind of give you similar vibes doing the 8-man and then being in the arena setting, even if it was for a cup of tea?
Yeah.
Just similar in terms of positions and all that, setup. In the 8-man football for Tennessee, are you allowed to, do they make different rules for motion? Can you have more than one player in motion, or is it still kind of along the same lines?
It's still the same. The only thing is we're allowed 3 people can be off the line of scrimmage, only 3.
Okay.
So you got to, that's a little tougher. That took a while to get used to, just to have 3, but we utilize it pretty well now. We can utilize it a little bit more than I thought, but again, you could scheme everybody. The only reason we have a chance to win games is because we can score with a trick play and not talent alone. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. That it's interesting because I had a chance to talk to Coach Sean Murphy about it, and like you said, he's the first person you called, and I saw how he operated firsthand for a while. My brother played offensive line for him, and he ran an off-balance offensive line, and he had 2 tackles on the same side. It was, you could call it the veer, the double wing, whatever you want to call it. He ran different iterations, and I just remember he ran about 6 or 7 plays out of different formations, and he dared you to stop him. And I know that he said it was a difficult transition going to 8-man down in North Carolina where he's at. And another thing I wanted to ask you though, Coach, is it difficult finding kids that want to play football at that school as opposed to, I mean, because in college kids go there on the premise of playing football.
Yep.
Like that's their goal to get there. See, in high school, not every kid that plays high school football wants to go and play college football. It's probably about half the team, a quarter of the team that truly want to reach that next level. Some of them are just doing it because their friends are doing it, or some of them are just doing it as a thing to do, or they have ulterior motives. But is it hard going through that school and finding kids that want to come play for you?
Well, this is the only high school I've been involved in, and I love everything about it. It's a smaller school, so you don't have a ton of athletes. I mean, our baseball team only has 14 right now. But our soccer team has 33. So there's a lot of athletes on the soccer field, and the girls basketball team had 8 or 9. You know, it's tough. But I found out even during recruiting and talking to other coaches, because I recruited this area for 20 some years too, that the culture's changed. The kids aren't coming out. Coaches are having less people at their workouts, and we've had the same problem. I mean, this morning we had 5 people at my workouts. We can't even line up and practice if we had a game. But they're also doing soccer and baseball. Basketball just ended last week, so I'm hoping we can get enough guys to work out. But what usually happens is exactly what you said. Come August 1st, right before school starts here, like August 2nd or 3rd, all of a sudden everybody wants to come out. All my friends playing. And you'll get 5 or 6 seniors who never play football and want to come out. And I'm going, I'm either going to line up with 10 players or have 16. I'd rather have 16. But you got 16 that's never played. It's not important. They want to get their name on their jersey or get a letter or whatever. And that's hard to swallow a little bit. But that's the way it is. And I've got to, can't change a culture overnight. So I've got to adapt and adjust and try to make the best out of
it. And I'm sure because you've been a lot of places, Coach. You've even going back to your formative days as a youngster, following your dad. He was a general manager in a multitude of different NFL cities. He was here in Washington, right down 95 for a while. He was in San Diego, I believe, was in Kansas City. So you've seen culture for football at every single level now that you can possibly see it. And I know that you coached in college for a long time. You were an offensive coordinator and a quarterbacks coach, and seeing the cultures, instilled there, and then having to go down to the high school level. I'm not saying it's a terrible step down, but you've been a college coach for a very long time. And I know that you took on this new, this new venture and this new challenge. So when it comes to the recruiting aspect, I'm assuming you find a lot of your kids in house at the middle school level as well.
Yeah, and we're allowed homeschoolers, so we get some homeschoolers too.
Okay.
And thank God we get some homeschoolers because some of them are coming in. They're coming in because they want to play football. Mom, I want to play football. And our school, because we're a private school, we allow that to happen. Where a lot of them have to go to the school zone they're zoned at, whether it's and they don't want to go to the public school system. So we do get some players that way. Actually, this year we got 3 good players just 2 weeks ago. They're really going to be good for us, difference makers. They're actually offensive linemen.
That's good.
But yeah, that was my biggest adjustment. I wanted to coach hard. I want to coach kids, not hard, not mean, but just, hey, let's do it right. And it was shock and awe. They're like, you want me to do it again? What did I do wrong? I go, you didn't finish. You got to run from this line to this line full speed. You pulled up. Well, I had guys just say, I'm not coming to practice today. I'm like, whoa. Now, my first year, I went through 7 practices with 4 guys or less before the season opened.
That's incredible.
Couldn't get in a huddle until August 1st. Couldn't even get a huddle until August 1st.
I'm sure you're fortunate for the homeschool kids that are the offensive linemen because I'm a little bit biased towards the trenches because I made my living there.
Yeah.
I was a highly physical offensive lineman. I never reached that 6'2", 6'3". I plateaued at 5'11" in high school. I magically grew an inch, after my 18th
Yeah.
birthday, which I was fortunate about. But yeah, to find kids that want to be engaged in physical contact, because offensive line is the only position, offensive and defensive line, where you're hands on every single play, and it's an imposition of will, and imposing your will on the other person on the other side of that line, and not many kids want to hit or be hit, so I'm
No,
sure
you're
that's a
right.
challenge.
And it's getting, like I said, and you mentioned, it's starting to decline every year. It's just there's 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 different things on their phone or on their computer they can watch, and you can coach them all you want as offensive defensive lineman, but it's all about want to. You want to be good. You want to be physical. I mean, you can coach to your blue in the face and say, "Here's your hand placement, run your feet, boom, push your back, whatever it is, separate." But if there's no want to, or I'm going to play anyway, so I don't need to do it that hard, it makes it more difficult and frustrating.
Absolutely, and I still remember my high school offensive line coach to this day, Coach Beathard, and he played center for Dan Marino at Pittsburgh in the '80s. I don't know if you know Mike Dahl,
I
and
know the name. I know the name.
he was my offensive line coach. He played center for the Indianapolis Colts, and then he just blew his knee out. He said 5 or 6 times, and he couldn't do it anymore. But he instilled hand placement, feet placement, shoulder width. Act like you're sitting on the toilet. Put your hand in the dirt and get a little bit of leverage. He focused on all the techniques before he harnessed any of our aggression. So
Yeah,
he wanted fundamentally sound football players as
sure.
opposed to reckless, aggressive football players. And his lines were fantastic. I mean, I can't speak in terms of the position players, but we had a really good offensive line my entire time I was there, whether it was fresh off JV varsity. He instilled it. And I'm sure that you're a stickler for everything because offense is your forte. You played quarterback, so you know what the linemen need to be doing, what type of pocket they need to be creating, how their feet need to be placed, and to not give away if they're going to pull out to the flat, or if they're going to pull down the line for a trap or a counter. And then as a center, you got to focus on snapping the ball and then stepping to the left
Yeah,
and getting out of the way for your guard.
I wish I could get to that point where I can make it that complicated right now, but we can't. But you're right. Everything you're saying is right. But right now, I'm I can't line up an offensive line right now. I don't know who's going to be the offensive line, and I don't get to start teaching them that until probably, hopefully in June, but probably August 1st. And our first scrimmage or jamboree is August 5th, I think, this year.
So that's information overload for the kids that are coming that late.
Yeah,
So
I mean, they have an opportunity to be there right now. This is anybody, whether you're at the neighboring um, public schools or the high school, my high school. I want to get it taught before we line up and get in the huddle and play somebody or scrimmage.
because a lot of people see a lot of people that are football fans, and I'm not saying that they're dumb. A lot of football fans are passionate about the sport, coach, and um, but if you've played it at any level, you know that sitting in the classroom and learning the X's and O's and learning why you do it this way and the reasoning for this, and knowing that you can run the same play out of 4 or 5 different formations, that is imperative that you understand that before you get on the football field, because you got to think when you're playing, but if you're thinking too much, you're going to slow down, and then there's no point in playing because your body isn't going as quick as your mind needs it to
Yeah, you
be.
don't want to play while you're processing. That's exactly
Right.
right.
And I wasn't always the most physically gifted in terms of athleticism. A lot of the time that I was playing, it came off of hard work and having a higher football IQ. At least I took pride in knowing where I had to be. I knew the rest of the offensive lineman assignments around me, and being one of the more aggressive and stronger guys on the team, it helped me out. But I made sure I knew formations and line calls and, calling man on man, or, if we were blocking a
Yeah.
zone, our coach ran a myriad of different, blocking schemes. And I knew that how frustrating that was going to two a days in late July, mid July, and having to do that for two practices a day for 3 weeks before we even really saw another team in a scrimmage. But having to do that in 5 days, that seems like it's nearly impossible.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But we're it, it's going to get better. It's getting better every week, every semester. It's getting better. And I'm not trying to put the blame on any of the kids or anybody or the school. Not at all. The pressure is on me to find out the best way to coach these guys. Instead of coming in off the college field and going, hey, I'm going to coach you this way. It's the only way. You can't do it. These kids, some of them have to go to work. They've committed to having jobs. We've got most of our kids at our school are in church on Wednesdays at a certain time, whether it's a youth group or something. I get there and practice Wednesday. First Wednesday, they go, we don't practice on Wednesdays here. I'm like, what? We don't practice on Wednesdays. I got a game Friday. And they go, no, we don't practice. So I go, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go at 6 o'clock in the morning. That way you have all the time in the world. And then I got a little bit of backlash from that. How do we get to our kids out early? I go, we're either going to go after school or in the morning. We got to do it. And it worked out. We got it worked out. We practiced some in the morning and walked through in the afternoon. Now they can go to church.
I
So those are
know
the things I'm dealing with. Hey, what do you mean we don't practice? You're telling me on Wednesday I got my practice strip right here, and my kicker's not here, my long snapper. I can't even do special teams.
An incredible thing to have to really deal with, Coach. And
Yeah,
I
but I
wanted to
get it
I
now.
wanted to
I'm
kind of
adjusting. I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry. There's a little bit of a lag on my end. Sorry, Coach. I wanted to ask you, kind of going back to college football. The landscape has completely changed now, with the NIL and the transfer portal, and not having to sit out a year for graduate. If you graduate with your bachelor's, and there's just so many different things going around college football right now. Um, what is your thought process to now essentially professionalizing the collegiate football ranks?
I got out of football my last season in 2019. Um, I got out September 2019, and all that was just starting. That was during that flu thing that was going around. Everybody had to wear a mask or something in some states, and so that was a big deal. Then you had the election coming up. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. Then the changes with the portal started coming, and the money and how we're going to handle it. I got out of it. As I seen it involved in college football, I think God took me out of it at the right time, because that's a tough deal. These coaches already work 24/7. They're on call, and now they have to deal with that and recruit, and their kids leaving. It's free agency all over. That's what I'm hearing. But I think it's changed the whole landscape. I feel sorry for these kids coming in high school, because the scholarships aren't there unless you're a 4 or 5 star player. And then if you work hard to get these kids, they might be there 1 year and say, hey, they got 2 of them. They're not competing anymore. The kids are saying, I'm not going to compete for my job. I'm leaving. I'll find another place where it's easier.
It almost seems like like you said, the competition to start has essentially eroded across all Division I schools. And I was listening to local radio here, and it was all conjecture for the most part in terms of whether it being 100% true or not. But there's now kids that are third and fourth string running backs, to where they'll go to the head coach and say, hey, this school is offering me X amount of dollars for NIL. It's going to be 100,000 to keep me. And this is your third or fourth string running back.
Yeah.
It's not even a starter.
I wish I could comment more on how that part of it works. I don't know. I don't know how the money exchange goes. I
Oh,
don't.
no. I wasn't
But
going to ask you any of
get
that,
it.
because
I get it that that's the way it is. You're playing getting paid to play. But I know from what I read too, and from hear from other coaches, some schools have a lot to offer, some don't have a lot to offer, and that makes somebody's a young student athlete's decision easy.
Yeah, and I'm, I'm fully believe that they should be able to make their money the way they see fit, but making college football a free agent frenzy and free for all, and you can transfer at the drop of a dime without any real repercussions. It just seems like I get it that the kids are only going to be loyal to the university as long as the people that are there recruited them. Like when Coach Saban retired at Alabama a couple months ago,
Mhm.
Alabama's football roster got pillaged. And it's like none of these kids have to sit a year. There's no shame in their transfer status now because 10, 15 years ago, if you wanted to transfer to another Power 5 school, you weren't playing until 18 months later.
At least,
And
'cause usually there's
it,
a conference rule that you can't play for a year or two, regardless,
right.
in the
So
same
you
conference.
or you had to apply for a medical waiver or you had to apply for a uh, post grad waiver to transfer. And now you're seeing starting quarterbacks from Power 5 teams now going and playing for other Power 5 teams. Just to throw one name out there, and it's nothing personal that I'm throwing the name out there. DJ Ugalele that played at Clemson.
Mhm.
He's now gone from Clemson to Oregon State, and now he's at Florida State with no
No penalty.
penalties. That's 3 colleges in 3 years, 4 years, and it's like these college kids are now staying in college until they're 26 years old. You, by the time you're done your first rookie contract, you're going to be 30.
Yeah, and if they don't make the pros and they're not getting that money anymore, and they have to get a real job, now what do you do? I mean,
Because
you're gonna pay cut.
yeah, it's going to be quite a pay cut. And the kid Bo Nix that played at Oregon and played at Auburn, he's 26 years old and he's going to be in the draft. By contrast, I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan through and through. Lamar Jackson turned 26 in his 6th year as a pro.
Yeah,
So it's crazy that they're almost the same age, and Bo hasn't even touched an NFL football field yet. And that just shows the absurdity of the transfer portal and these extra COVID years. I understand COVID to a degree, but I think there's a tight end at University of Miami that's on his 8th college season,
there's somewhere I heard that. I did. I
and
don't remember where it's from, but I did hear that.
it just it's crazy. And before we wrap the show, I wanted to ask you, Coach. I know that your dad. My condolences. I know it's been a little over a year now, and you know, my condolences to your father and
Thank
your family. But he is a well-traveled, respected general manager for decades in the NFL. He's a 4-time Super Bowl champion, Hall of Famer. Um, I know that he was the general manager of the Redskins and the Chargers.
you. Yeah,
Both franchises present day had their issues for different reasons. The Chargers more along the lines of not wanting to spend money, and now they went and grabbed Jim Harbaugh. And then with the now Commanders, uh, what was it like for you to just see it go from the previous ownership and then when your dad was there to what they went through the last 25 years? I know they got to hold a place in your heart for your family, at least.
yeah. I mean, I still call them the Redskins. I don't know any different. My dad's in the Ring of Honor under the Redskins. You know,
Right.
um, when we went there, I think that 2016, I believe that was the year he got inducted to the Redskin Hall of Fame. Um, yeah, I follow them more now because my brother works for them. He's worked for them the last 2 years um, as a scout. Um, I just don't understand. I remember my dad back in the day. We would drive cross country from California back to Virginia, and he would stop at Indian reservations and talk to them. They loved it. No one ever had a problem with it. All of a sudden, political correctness and everything came in, and now they're trying to find a name. Seems like every year they're switching their name for one. So to me, it's kind of lost what the Redskins are all about. I remember the days when Riggins and Joe Theismann and all those guys, all the way through my dad's last year. Even after that, when they won the Super Bowl with Mark Rippon, I believe it was Joe Gibbs last year, before he went to racing. I go, yeah, that's the team that had the perfect culture. They had everything they needed to keep it going. And I, to be honest with you, I don't know what happened after that. I know there was a new owner that left after Jack Kent Cook, and that probably had a lot to do with it.
It's a storied franchise. It's one of the originals, and
Yeah.
I was curious, to kind of pick your brain about that because it's not every day that somebody gets to say, "Oh, my dad was a general manager of all these fantastic teams," or involved in the organization in some way, and to be as well traveled and as well respected. Um, I know it's special for the family name, and I know you guys have a lot of pride in it. Your nephew right now, he's still currently in the NFL. He is a quarterback on the Jacksonville Jaguars. They had a little bit of an off year, but I remember CJ playing over in San Francisco for a couple years, and
Yep.
he's still managed to keep his opportunity and his dreams alive. And I know it's nice for you being a quarterback, seeing your nephew
Oh
uh,
yeah.
honing his craft still to this day, and that
I
can't
get to
be.
train him. I get to train him every off season. We work together.
Wow. Okay, so you do train CJ.
Yeah.
So for us non NFL leveled athletes that are currently watching and listening, what is the most important non on field activity that you stress for quarterbacks in terms of preparation? Like, I know you practice a myriad of different activities, but what is the most important thing that you focus on as a quarterback coach for not just CJ but anybody?
As far as as
Not
far as physical,
Yeah, physical preparation.
footwork, footwork from your hips down. It all starts there. Getting your hips around. It all starts with your footwork because it'll slow everything else down. If your feet aren't right, you're taking long steps. Everything will. I start with footwork first. That's
And,
where your
and
power is generated. Your power is not. People go, oh, he doesn't have enough arm strength. It's not his arm. He benches 500 pounds. It can't be his arm. He can do 100 dips. It's not his arm strength. It's the way he throws.
I'm sure it's a little bit more difficult knowing that he is your nephew, so there's the family aspect to it. But are you as hard on him as you are on everybody else?
No, I mean, he grew up the same way I did. He grew up with a football in his hand. All my nephews did, just like we did. They didn't have the phones and all that. They were always in the yard playing football. We were at the beach every year. It was always football, or playing wiffle ball, or baseball, or ball. There was always a ball around, so it just came natural to him. He just took to the quarterback, just like his younger brother was a quarterback. Also, his life was short and he got um, passed away, but those both of them were just that's all they knew to be a good quarterback. So no, I help them, but I don't sit there and coach them like I'm the Jaguars quarterback coach.
I got you. But coach, I want to thank you so much for joining the show. It's been great picking your brain and learning a little bit about 8-man football in high school in Tennessee and talking about your family traditions and your being well traveled across the country for college coaching and recruiting. Um, Thank you again so much. If you want to, you can let anybody know where they can follow you on social media. If they want to follow along for your high school, where they can find you online.
I don't even know that stuff. The Zion Christian Academy.org is all I know.
There you go. They can
I know
find you there.
we do streaming and all that, but I don't know how to do it.
There you go, Coach. Thank you so much. You can hang around for a post show. That'll do it, folks. We'll be back on Thursday at 8 o'clock. We have our Elimination Chamber preview show coming up with a couple of special guests. So tune
Thank,
in then.
thanks, Matt. God bless you all. Thank you.